So today's theme is barriers to faith. And I'm going to start off by asking Terry Spratt a question. Why is it that in every age, for example in the time of Christ, despite or in spite of all the prophecies foretelling his coming, his return, we have been unable to recognize him?
That's a good question. It's true not only of Christ, but it's true of all of the messengers of God. And I'm going to start with a reference to one of Baha'u'llah's works. It's actually his second most important book, the Book of Certitude. And in that he talks about the qualities of the true seeker. And he says, if we are seeking truth, and here's the quote, we must divest ourselves of all acquired knowledge, of both love and hate, lest love blindly attract us, or hate repel us from the truth. Now the love and the hate here refer to the fact that we don't like the change in traditions, in laws, in rituals. We are somewhat given to inertia. Okay, we like to stick with what our forefathers knew. So Jesus changed the rules of the Sabbath and divorce. There are people today who believe that if the new messenger doesn't confirm everything that Jesus said, that they wouldn't accept him. Well, that's like putting handcuffs on God. Okay, you don't do that. God reveals himself according to the needs of the age. And this goes back to something we talked about earlier, which is known as progressive revelation. Progressive revelation essentially teaches that as humanity evolves, develops from, let's say, infancy to childhood to adolescence, the needs at each distinct point or phase in his evolution are different. So you can't treat, for example, a 14-year-old the same way you treat a 2-year-old. Because for two reasons. One, the 14-year-old has a much greater capacity. This principle, by the way, of progressive revelation works also in science. We get scientific discoveries in a very timely way. Okay? So let's go back to the arrival of Christ. You can say this of all of the messengers, because in every case there was a clear promise of a return, and when it happened, they were rejected. They were rejected because people are tied to tradition. This is where we get into the love aspect. The love of tradition, that includes family. I was born this and therefore I should stay this. And there's nothing in any religious book to suggest that faith is static. As we say, everything is promised a renewal. So the hate is the hate of change, okay? Or the hate of the laws, or the inability to want to adjust. And these are the barriers that Baha'u'llah is talking about. In particular, the traditions, the laws, the rituals, etc. So it's revelation, Baha'u'llah says, is itself a test. It's a test of the sincere. Some people believe that it would become so obvious that there would, everyone would accept. What we fail to realize sometimes is that God never deprives us of choice, of free will. And so when he says that every revelation is a test, it means that, as Jesus said, many are called, few are chosen. Okay, now it's not that we exalt ourselves because we have recognized the messenger of God, because we are guided, number one, we are assisted, okay, but we must have an openness. We must have, which is, by the way, one of the key principles of the Baha'i Faith, the independent investigation of truth. Far too many of us accept things on someone else's opinion. Something is not true because someone said so or wrote so, other than the messengers of God. As Socrates said, you judge the idea, not the man. So it doesn't matter who says it, what his or her credentials are, what station they hold in any institution or whatever. It has to do with, this is the figure who claims to be the promised one, the fifth Buddha, the Shabaram, the Immaculate Reincarnation of Lord Krishna, the Lord of Hosts, the second coming of Christ. And it goes on and on and on. In every tradition you have a reference to this great figure who would, down the corridor of history, usher in a new age based on the unity, justice, and peace. So this is a challenge to us. I mean, I was born into a tradition. I could say the whole Mass in Latin, etc. I was the one expected to be the priest. I did not expect to find a new faith. I wasn't consciously looking. There are people who are, by the way. This is, if we could just do a sidebar on this. There are people in every age who are so tuned they know it's going to happen before it happens. John the Baptist, okay? In the Baha'i Faith, Sheikh Ahmad, Sheikh Kazim. And these are like the stars, figurative stars, okay? The spiritual stars. And at every age when there's a new messenger, there's also a new star in the heavens, physically. Okay, these are facts. So we get these signs, but in spite of that, we are somewhat given to, we're in a rut, to put it mildly, okay? I mean, I came from this family. My great uncle was an archbishop. My uncle was a Jesuit, this, that, and the other thing. And so you've got tradition that has a hold on you. But we have the capacity to think independently. We have to trust and we have to turn to God. We have to have a pure heart. We will be assisted if our intentions are pure. Okay? So when Baha'u'llah talks about divest yourself of all acquired knowledge, that has to do with the traditions and the rules and the laws and the rituals of previous dispensations or any other kind of knowledge that would bar you from taking an independent approach to this claim of Baha'u'llah to be the promised one of all ages.